What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Gravity Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Chris. Thank you for choosing to tune in today. Hey, folks, we're back at it. How do you stay grounded in a world full of noise and chaos? What are your foundations? What are the things in life that when life starts to get busy, when life starts to get crazy, when it gets chaotic, you're able to take a breath, to pause for a moment, and to process what's going on around you, to keep you from getting carried away. You've heard me talk about it before. There's a few different ways I articulate it. It's the relationships, the experiences, our core values that help Jaimie and I maintain perspective. Said another way, our faith, our family, and those values is what helps us kind of recognize what true north is. Recognize where we're going and the things that we're going to look at and think, yeah, I'm not wasting my energy on that thing. And so, that's the reason we're coming together here on the podcast is bringing guests on the show that give you hopefully the opportunity to do that, to pause, to listen to their perspective. And you might agree with them. You might totally disagree with them, and that's okay. If it points you back to your foundations, if it gets you curious and asking, why do I disagree with this person? I don't know how much you're going to disagree with today's guest, but Tim Fasnacht is going to be on the show today. Tim and I worked together at the Lynnwood Police Department back in 2005, 2006, and we were both brand new at the job. He had done some different things that exposed him to the job as a reserve police officer and as a police cadet, police explorer, and then we were there for our first full-time, I guess, big kid job. I guess serving in the military, that was a big kid job for me. And then I left. I lateraled here to Kennewick and did my thing. He went off and did his thing. And then as I have been in this consulting world, teaching world, I kept hearing his name come up. I kept hearing his name from other trainers who I really respect telling me that Tim was killing it, that he is out there doing a really good job equipping our criminal justice professionals. So I'm excited for you to hear from him today. But before that, folks, I want to talk about Warrior's Heart. Warrior's Heart is the hat I'm wearing today on the YouTube version of the podcast. Warrior's Heart is a PTSD and a substance abuse treatment center down in San Antonio, Texas. They also have another facility located in Virginia, and they serve warriors only, folks. Warriors only. That means military, first responder, emergency medicine. Those are the categories of jobs that people have to come from in order to be qualified to go to Warrior's Heart, to heal their brains and to heal their bodies. Their motto is Warriors Healing Warriors, and it's exactly what they do, folks. Look down in the show notes, folks. I'm going to have a link down there for Warrior's Heart. You may not need them, but someone who you love and care about may. So go ahead and take a look at that so that you have that resource for the future. With that, let's get into our interview with Tim Fasnacht. Tim Fasnacht, welcome to the Gravity Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on, man.
You know, I laugh at myself because we were having our little pre-interview and I dropped my octave like 3 octaves. I dropped my voice down. I don't mean to do it. It's not like, all right, Chris, it's time to do your deep voice. Like that is not what I'm trying to do here, but I catch myself doing it almost every episode.
You're getting in the zone. I totally get it.
Yeah, we got to get in the zone here. Yeah. Hey, I'm excited about this, brother. I mean, we knew each other and worked together eons ago when you and I were both new in our professions. And I'm just excited to reconnect and hear about your journey.
I'm looking forward to it too, man. It's so cool to see what the years have done to both of our careers and where we ended up. So that's awesome.
I almost have a completely matching flag. For the folks that are hearing the audio only, they're not going to get this. But if they want to tune into the YouTube version, they can see it. You have a beautiful flag back there as a coin holder. I have one that you can just see the stars and the stripes off to my over here on my left shoulder. But
That's awesome.
I don't have my recording area centered on that. Enough about wooden flags. Hey, Tim, for folks that don't know you, maybe this is the first time they've heard your voice. Can you give us an introduction who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name is Tim, and I am the director of ARC Tactical. ARC Tactical is a corrections focused training company. Um, we got there in kind of an interesting way. I started in the corrections field at the same agency that you were a patrol officer in, way back. And I quickly found out that there wasn't a lot of training specifically for what I was venturing to do with my career. And there was a lot of people just trying to make things work and figuring it out. And I said, I probably should ask somebody who knows better than me. And was lucky enough to have a ton of mentors and develop a curriculum that now we've taken all around the country, all around the world, actually. Just got back from Australia training their CERT teams. Dubai, did some stuff in Canada, all around. So, in a short synopsis, that's who I am. I'm a corrections professional, do a lot of expert witness stuff and a ton of training. My passion's training. So, it's kind of fun to see how we've intersected because you're in that world too, man. It's great.
When did you realize that you enjoyed to be a trainer? When did you realize that you liked this teaching gig?
It's kind of an interesting story because I don't have a particular point where it happened, but I grew up and I still am. I am very much an introvert. I don't like talking in front of people. I was the kid that would call out sick on the day that the stand up and talk report was due, right?
Yeah.
Just wasn't my thing. And it wasn't until I kind of put myself in a position where I needed to do that and then do it again and then do it again and then do it again until I found like, hey, I'm actually getting the hang of this and it's rounding itself out. And then I started getting, successes with my students. And that feeling is unimaginable, right? It's something that
Yeah.
you're like, oh my gosh, I'm providing something that's of value. And I don't know that I'd ever really been able to feel that in a way that was so intense and recognizable. And that was it. I did that a couple of times. I'm like, this is what I do now.
Yeah, you were hooked at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very selfish. Like I do it because it makes me feel good. But with that, people get a ton of benefit out of it and they get to
Yeah.
learn from all of my mistakes and hear my story and, take all the things that I've been able to borrow and, tweak and do different things from others that have gone before me. So it's a really great adventure. So
Yeah. And I get what you're saying by calling it selfish because because you do benefit from it and it's very edifying is what I'm hearing you saying. At the same time, like I want instructors like the classes that I sit in as a student, I want them to be hungry to teach. I want them to be hungry to see students learn and I want them to benefit from it because that's going to
yeah.
cause them to continue doing it versus, oh, sweet mercy. And we've all been in those classes where as soon as the instructor starts to speak, you're like, I am not going to get the next 2 hours of my life back. This is going to be horrible.
Yeah.
And I try to catch myself when I think that because I'm like, you know what, Chris, you can learn something from anyone. And so whether you learn content right now or whether you learn some new skills about how to present and how not to present, whatever it might
Right.
be, you can still learn from this person who's standing in front of you, expelling air from their body. So,
That's right. It's never fun when the instructor was voluntold to be there, just like you were
yeah,
voluntold to be the student. But you're absolutely right. Like I think the best instructors are consistent learners, right? You don't get a certificate and now I don't have to intake any more information. That's not how that works. If you're really a student of the game, you are constantly learning more things, reading, adapting, and if you have an instructor that doesn't do those things, it's pretty apparent real quick. And so, one of the things that we have found as a company, because one of the things we do is we actually provide in-service training for a lot of agencies, whether it's defensive tactics or whatever. And that's some of the value that we add because having an outside organization come in that, it's difficult to be the rock star in your own hometown. But sometimes those guys show up and they're just like, yeah, I don't want to be here either, guys. Let's just get through it. And really, we're just wasting time because no learning is occurring there. So when we get to come in from agencies or visit agencies that we don't belong to, but we're there working with them, man, it just really increases the value level of what the students are getting and what the agency gets too. So.
Hey friends, I wanted to take a quick break in the episode to tell you about a small change that I've made to get better quality sleep. I've been pretty outspoken about my process in healing from post-traumatic stress injuries, and at the core of my overall health routine is quality sleep hygiene. I go to bed at the same time every night. I wake up at the same time in the morning. I get early morning sunlight to help set my circadian rhythm. My sleeping environment is cool, dark, technology-free. The one area really that I was lacking was in natural supplements. I was taking some over-the-counter supplement, but I really didn't know what benefits it was giving me until recently when I came across First Responder Health and Wellness, and I learned that they had a sleep supplement that was formulated to help me fall asleep and progress through the various sleep cycles. Well, folks, I spent some of my money. I bought the supplement and I started using it, and I've been really thrilled with the results. The more I learned about the company First Responder Health and Wellness, I learned that they weren't just a supplement company. In fact, they're actually a telemedicine practice exclusively for first responders. They provide comprehensive, individualized care to address the complexities of first responder health. They do advanced lab testing, extensive hormone panels, and gut testing to treat patients based on underlying causal data instead of the standard-based population metrics. First Responder Health is a membership-based practice that allows more committed time in the first visit than your traditional provider will see you in a whole year. They also have developed their own supplement line, like I've already talked about, that's based on combined research of doctors like Andrew Huberman, Peter Attia, and Mark Hyman. The supplements help support sleep, stress, and cellular function. An exclusive for Gravity Podcast listeners, please use Gravity 15. That's Gravity 15 for a 15% discount code at checkout. To schedule a free inquiry call or to purchase supplements, go to www.firstresponderhealth.net or look down in the show notes for a link. With that, let's get back into our episode. Yeah, I love it. Hey, let's rewind the clock. Let's go back to 2005, 2006.
Yeah.
You and I are both at Lynnwood in the greater Seattle area. What was your experience? I mean, we worked for different people. Granted, it was the same agency, but at the same time, two different humans can have two different experiences from the same period of time. So, what was your experience like being a corrections officer at Lynnwood Municipal Jail?
Yeah. I mean, to rewind just a tad further, when I was a teenager, I was definitely headed down the wrong path, and I was lucky enough to have my mom, who worked as a support services clerk, did a lot of record stuff, and she a ton of law enforcement experience. But she pushed me into the Explorer program. And for those that don't know, the Explorer program is essentially like Boy Scouts for people who are interested in being cops. It's actually a faction of the Boy Scouts. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And so I was actually started at the city of Lynnwood in that capacity in like 97, 98.
I
Right.
didn't know that.
Yeah. And then I became a police cadet, which was really a role designed to be the gopher, right? Like you're moving evidence from here to there. You're working on the vehicle fleets. You're, making sure things are stocked, all the things that cops don't have time to do because they're out, doing the hard stuff. That was my role. But what that provided me was a lot of insight in what actually happens behind the scenes at a law enforcement agency. A lot of cops will go and they don't even know, like, hey, my car is full. How does this even happen? Well, somebody's actually doing it, right?
It
No
wasn't
magical
leprechauns.
fairy.
It wasn't
Yeah,
leprechauns. It was the cadets.
exactly. And so I got a benefit of doing that. And then around 2005, and I've said this on a couple other platforms, but people these days really don't understand what it was like to become a cop during that era, because you had like 4 spots and 400 people applying for them.
Yes, you
And
did.
to be very frank, I did not test well. I was not a good test taker, just wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And when I tested to be on the road, I kept missing the mark, like just getting edged out every time. And right around the same time I was doing that, I was a reserve officer for another agency, so gaining experience there. But Lynnwood knew my work as an explorer and then a police cadet. They had a job opening that they needed filled, and I was able to test and work with them. And so initially, it was one of those things like I'm finally kind of proven myself from the efforts that I put in before. And so it was great. I felt great. I had a great team that I worked with as a CO. Again, we were all like trying to figure life out of how do we do this the best way. And I really appreciated the agency because they actually gave me a lot of leeway in doing the DT stuff, which is eventually what my career's now, right? At the time, and I know I'm kind of rambling on, but at the time, there was kind of a culture, and it's probably familiar around the world, but corrections is less than patrol. There's kind of like this necessary evil in some way. And when I wanted to be a DT instructor, the first answer I got was corrections officers can't be DT instructors. Obviously, you can't do that. That's not possible. And I had somebody looking out for me that was a mentor in the upper administration that basically said, "Let's give him a shot. Let's see what happens." And I'm forever grateful. Had that person not been in that spot and not seen, potential, I would have never be where I'm at now. So
Wow. I love that, brother. And you're totally right. That's the way we do look at it. There's this hierarchy, if you will. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah,
even I hate to say this, and I hope I don't piss anyone off, but if I do, oh well, suck it up. Um, Linwood kind of had this mentality of we're better than you when it came to other agencies too.
yeah,
And our uniforms looked sharp. We had really great gear and equipment, and I think we were good. But the struggle comes in that competitive. I'm okay being competitive. I'm a pretty competitive guy. But the reality is we need so much of each other. None of
yeah,
our police agencies, in a real big crisis, really has enough resources to deal with stuff, and
no,
so we're constantly dependent on the other agencies. And I saw it there in Greater Snohomish County when I lateraled over here to Kennewick. Exact same thing, where when you need help, and all of a sudden you get 15 units there, and you look around and everyone's wearing a different patch, it feels pretty darn good. And so I love that somebody was re- was willing to see that, what, maybe we should do this a little bit different.
yeah, yeah. And you're right. Lynnwood was this way, but other agencies are this ways too, right? And I kind of, for lack of a better term, I haven't really been able to figure out a better term for it, but it's almost incestuous where they feed off their own ideas and refuse to look outside for other input. And because of that, people and agencies are actually way behind the curve. Like I'll
Yeah.
talk to agencies these days around the country. Our tactical is in 32 different states right now and only growing. We got a class going on right now in Nevada. It's one of our first times there, but we're getting feedback where it's like we didn't think that we could do this, or this is not an idea that we had come up because they hadn't seen it. They hadn't seen it because they haven't opened their eyes to look. And it's an unfortunate thing where a lot of agencies do that because this is the way we've always done it. No
Yeah.
more dangerous words have been spoken in a law enforcement agency than that, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. I was very blessed to have that light shown on me. So
And this is what I loved him too, because you were pursuing patrol at the time. Are you a person of faith? I don't know.
I am, yeah, absolutely. I'm a
Okay.
Christian, yeah,
All right. And I asked the question just because I have seen God close doors and me scratching my head for periods of time. And I didn't get what I wanted. But in the end, it was so much better.
yeah, for
In the,
sure.
in the end, it was so much better. And the experience that you got as a CO, and then getting that opportunity to be a DT instructor, and then what it has transpired to become with Arc Tactical is just, I mean, 32 states. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
32 states and other places around the world,
yeah. It's kind of
right?
crazy. Just a CO from Lynnwood, figuring things out. But we got there basically by modeling the same thing that led me to try out to be a DT instructor is, hey, there's an opportunity. I'm going to try it and see what happens. And it's a muscle that I didn't have growing up, to be honest. I was very much I'm going to wait till other people mess things up and then I'm not going to do what they did. Right. And so by kind of putting my toe in the water, saying, let's see what happens. What's the worst that could happen? That's how we've grown, really. I mean, our first opportunity that we had nationally was teaching for ILETA, the International Law Enforcement Educators Association. I think I got that right. But they do a conference every year. It's this big conference. And I attended one year. And while I was attending, I had heard that, hey, look, we have opportunities to propose a class. And I'm like, well, I know how to do that. So I proposed the class and they accepted it. So here I am, some podunk dude from the city of Lynnwood, and I'm teaching at an international level at this conference. And we got a ton of business from that because the same messaging that we had, that I felt, hey, look, corrections officers are lower down on the totem pole. Other agencies were feeling that too. And so I got to speak some life into these guys and, hey, look, our COs are being seen now. We need to invest in our people that are doing these hard tasks and dealing with some of the most vulnerable, but also some of the most dangerous people around. And they don't get to drive away in their car. They're right there, right?
Exactly.
That message really resonated. And that has brought our company to the heights that we're at now. So just taking those steps and pushing yourself to see what happens is really how we grew.
Yeah. Do you recall, especially at the beginning there, any mistakes that were made that you really learned from and you were like, oh my gosh, like, okay, now I see how I need to do this different.
Oh yeah, for sure. Look, everything that I do now is because I made mistakes before. Like there isn't one thing that I nailed right out of the gate. The way we structure our classes, the way we provide logistical information. My very first class was in a neighboring agency. I had our curriculum developed. I was really happy with it. We did our first one and none of my technology worked. Nothing. Like I had this like hour-long PowerPoint that was going to start off everything and kind of get people in the framework. Totally crapped the bed. And so I was like, okay, what do I do now? All right, I need a pivot. And so we just talked through it and just, made it work. But, I have some really good people that helped me develop that. And one of them is a guy named Rob Ellsworth. He's a legend in the corrections training world here in Washington State. Awesome dude. But he's like, dude, you need to get an Apple because those things never fail. I'm like, yes, sir, I'm on it. So commercial for Apple, like they need it. But just different tweaks like that. And some of the things that we learned early on was, who was this class for? Because my idea was, I thought this message of let's invest in COs was important, resonated, that worked, and I limited it to that. What I didn't realize was that the same idea of the hierarchy of people that is all around. So we have agencies that have what's called like a support services officer. So like they do transports or they do animal control. Many of those folks don't get the training that we weren't getting either. And so we've expanded our operation to really help those folks as well. And we're also finding cops are like, hey, look, you know what? We're trainers, but you're right. We don't know what corrections officers do. We don't know what that looks like. So we've been able to kind of reverse this process of, hey, COs aren't getting what they need to now we're providing the needs for our patrol guys so that doesn't happen. So a lot of those mistakes are really just limiting my mind. And when the problem arose, I'm like, okay, well, instead of saying, I don't know what to do with this, I'm giving up, I'm going to find a way. And a lot of times it's not from me. I'm asking the people that are pros in that field or may have insight here and there. And I steal their ideas and then I say that they're mine and it's great. It works wonderful.
Yeah, I oftentimes say that in classes, the fact that most of what I say is from someone else, right? It's
Yeah.
from a book I read, it's from a podcast I listened to. I mean, when I intentionally can cite the person or the resource I do, But at this point in life, I, education has come from a lot of different locations, and I can't credit everything that I know and that I say to every single thread of person that gave it to me because it's just too vast, right? I
Yeah.
mean, when you're constantly looking to learn, you get the opportunity to learn from a lot of different people in a lot of different places, including that person who you're booking in at jail, right?
Yeah,
Including
absolutely.
that person I'm driving to the jail. I mean, a lot of life lessons can happen in otherwise common places if you're willing to be quiet and look for it.
Yeah. One of our mutual friends, Ian Edwards, he's been on the podcast before, I think.
He has, yeah.
He has a acronym. He calls it CASE, copy and still everything. So that seems to work out pretty well for me.
Yeah, I love it. How long did you continue to be a full-time CEO and run Arc Tactical before you realized, hey, I need to make a decision here?
That I, it's tough to say because 2020 provided some unique challenges, and that's where a lot of these decisions were made. So, I was a CEO from 2005 to technically 2021. Okay. But there's some murky area in between. So I started Arc Tactical in 2012, doing really, really small things. Had a contract with the Corrections Academy here in Washington State. Um, a lot of agencies around the country have their own academy. Here in Washington, we have an academy that all the COs go to get certified as a corrections officer. So I had a contract teaching with them. To do that, you needed to have your own business. So I started Arc Tactical with that. But we were also doing things like I provided training for security officers at college campuses, even an airport I worked with at one point, and just little jobs here and there. And then in 2018, I got promoted to a sergeant, and I had to mitigate some of that, less work on the side, more sergeantine,
Yeah.
Um, but I tend to work night shift. And really what I ended up doing, I don't know that I've ever talked about this, but I did something that was really detrimental, chasing my dream of wanting to build this. And that would be as I would work a 12-hour night shift, and then I would get off and sleep for like 3 hours, and then I'd go train during the day, and then I'd go work another night shift. Like I would do
Yeah.
that almost every week for almost 2 years, and it was brutal. But I'll tell you, I learned so much during that time that I would never give it up. It actually landed me in the hospital once, which was a crazy story, but I don't recommend it. But I got a lot out of that time. And so working through that, and then in 2020, the Lynnwood jail had an opportunity to rebuild a jail. Essentially, they knocked the one down, they're building another one up. We were a very small facility at the time. I can't remember the number of beds, but we were probably rated for like 50, and we typically had like 60 people in there,
Oh,
and we are
wow.
stacking people on top of each. Like it was not a good situation. So they recognized the need to build that. And but what happens is, because when you're knocking one jail down to build another one, that doesn't happen overnight. So we needed a place to put our corrections officers. Well, like we're not going to fire everybody and then rehire them. That doesn't make any sense. So what do you do? And I had an opportunity, because of my work at the academy as a contract instructor, to go down there and be a TAC officer running one of the classes. And I did that, and that took me out of the jail. Um, got a chance to teach there, and then within like 2 months, Ian Edwards, who was the corrections commander at the time, had a new opportunity. He pivoted. They didn't really have anybody else in mind, so they popped me into the corrections commander position. So I got to do that for a year, and you know, uh, not knocking anything with what the state is doing, but I'll tell you, it's a pressure cooker of an environment to work in. And after doing it for a little bit over a year, I got to a point where I was like, I know I'm making a difference. I have a legacy project. One of the things that I was able to do there was take a 4-week corrections academy, which is not enough at all,
Yeah.
to build it to a 10-week academy. And
Seriously.
yeah, so we got
Wow.
to work. Ian and I worked together on that, and several others. Like I was part of a big team working on it. But we got that off and did our first class. Our first class graduated on my last day there. And so I bailed and I made the jump to really invest in Arc Tactical. And one of the reasons I was able to do that, and I'll just do a shameless plug, is I work for a company. One of our biggest contracts at Arc Tactical is a company called Safe Restraints and the RAP. So a lot of law enforcement adjacent people will know what the RAP is, but it's like a prisoner burrito, right? You got somebody who's fighting, they're
It's
able to
a
kick their legs.
really good description for the
Yeah,
non-cops listening.
that's right. It's like, how do we keep them from hurting themselves? How do we keep them from hurting us? And how do we get them off their chest so that they can breathe? That's what that does. And so I had known another one of those instances where, hey, I have an opportunity to take a jump. I'm going to reach out and talk to this guy. And I did. And we built a great relationship off of that. And, circling back, he reached out and said, hey, how would you like to come be on our board of directors as the director of training? And I said, yeah, I'll do that. And so now I get to work with that and really invest in Arc Tactical. And that's how I was able to make that jump. I am very lucky. It wasn't one of those things where like, I'm just going to be really courageous and do that. I mean, there was a little bit of it, but I had a safety net built in, and praise God that happened, because without that, I think I'd probably still be being miserable where I was. Not necessarily at the agencies. It's just I'm somebody that always has to be doing something, and sometimes I feel like I outgrow where I'm at. So
Yeah, no, I can totally resonate with that. I do moving into different positions is what I would say is the salt and pepper
yeah,
for my personality as well. And I would argue, I mean, again, I know where you're going with this. I would argue that it wasn't very much luck. That you were probably doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason. You were a hard worker, and that's what I remember of you in the short time we worked together. You're a hard worker, and you have a good attitude. And when you're a hard worker and you have a good attitude, at most places, you're going to get opportunity. Not everywhere. There's sometimes you can have a great attitude and be the hardest worker, and it's going to suck. And you maybe need to look for a new organization to work for.
yeah.
And that can create a lot of opportunity for you when you have a good attitude and you're working hard. And again, think about it, Tim. Think about it. You could have got hired as a patrol officer, and you could be pushing. And again, for the patrol coppers out there, I'm not saying this in a negative way. In fact, talking to some of the young folks that are on the job right now at Kenwook, the agency I retired from, they're loving it. I love it. I want them to love it. I was loving it at the end. I
Yeah.
wasn't loving the child abuse cases and the death
Yeah.
scenes. That's was causing me some issues. But the just like logging into service and doing the job, I still loved it. I was teaching an instructor development class last week, no, 2 weeks ago, and one of the other instructors with me was like a 30 plus year Snohomish County deputy, and I said this to him. Oh man, I loved it even at the end. He looked at me like I was crazy. He's like, what? And I'm like, I'm serious, man. Like I was a sergeant, so I didn't go out and cover the road very often. But I remember one day we had a couple SWAT guys work all night, and then they reported to work in the morning. And when I heard about it, I told the patrol. They didn't have a patrol sergeant working that day. They had an officer in charge, and I told them, hey, we need to send those guys home. So we talked to the commander. Commander gave us a thumbs up. We sent them home on the company's dime, meaning you've worked all night, put in
Yeah.
for your overtime, and just go home. Like we can't have you out on the street. You haven't had any sleep. And I went out and worked a zone for like 55 minutes. I mean, again, nothing, right? I think I handled two calls for service and they weren't big, but I had a big old grin on my face. Just
That's
just
right.
working a zone for a little bit, right? Because that is the fun work of it.
Well, I think there's something to be said about that moment when you log into service, right? Because there's kind of a unspoken exchange going on there, and people will pass by it if you're not looking for it. But
Mm,
every night like I said, I primarily worked night shift, but when I logged in for service, I was answering that call for service. Like, I'm here, send me, right? And I think that does something internally of hey, I'm opening myself up for whatever's going to come my way. I'm excited to go and serve. I'm excited to go help my team. And I'm part of this community that has one mission. This is what we're doing. And I always love that feeling. And it's kind of different because you're probably experiencing this now. I set my own schedule. Like that. I'm not reporting for duty at all. Like I got out of bed today and made myself some eggs and now I'm in front of my computer. Like that's what I do now. But I do miss that. Like, hey, there's uh, help. People need our help. They need they're calling for us. They need something, and we get to be that answer. And so,
Mm.
um, again, I think if you're not looking for it, you're gonna miss it. So the
For
people
the
that are doing the job now,
Yeah, for the people that are doing the job, just sit in that for a little bit. And the biggest word I think you said in there, Tim, was you get to.
yeah,
So just keep that in mind. I did an Olympic triathlon this weekend, and after the race was done, I'm talking to the race director, and he's probably older than me by 5 or 10 years, and we're just talking about getting ready for this other race, and he made the comment of at this point in life, when our body is healthy, when I'm not dealing with my ankle or my knee or whatever else gets injured from week to week, when you're having a healthy week, you get to train. You
yeah,
you get to. And I know that feeling because on the weeks that I've been injured, I've invested money, time, like there's a ton of emotional energy wrapped up into this process right now. And when I don't get to train, it's hard.
yeah.
When I get to train, I literally think of it that way. So for our firefighters, our corrections officers, police officers, dispatchers, if you can get your mindset to that, and I realize that might be a big shift, especially if the job is really heavy on you right now. But if you can get to that mindset of, I get to be the person that helps people tonight, I get to be the answer to chaos, I get to be the answer to problems. And if you can see it in that light, I think it could have a profound impact on just the way you carry yourself, the way you feel during your shift.
Yeah, I think, man, it's so easy to get caught up in the negativity, right? It's so easy to fall down that. Um, but the truth of the matter is there's a line out the door of people ready to do the job, right? And if you are feeling like you're in that rut and this isn't for you anymore, right, there's probably a reason for that. And that's what I did. There was another way for me to do what I loved and focused on my purpose. And if you're working a beat or you're in the jail or you're doing stuff and you don't feel like you have a purpose, that's a tough thing to overcome. Like, why
Yeah.
am I doing this? Right? I could
Yeah.
I could get shanked tonight. I could get exposed to some type of bloodborne pathogen. Bad stuff could happen. Why am I doing this? And so if you don't have that purpose, you got to look for it. And if you can't find it doing what you're doing, that might be your call to go somewhere else, right?
Yeah. Mutual friend of yours and mine, Matt Porter, him and I were training a law enforcement agency over there in the West Side, and one of the exercises we led their sergeants through was to develop a why statement. Totally,
Mm,
obviously, full credit goes to Simon Sinek. It's his
yeah.
one of his big talks and books, and not just a why statement because as a guy typically, well, let me ask you, you're a corrections officer, you're a sergeant at Lynnwood at the time, and if I came to you without any other preparation and told you to create a why statement, what lens are you probably going to do it through as a guy?
Well, I probably my wife's statement is going to be focused on my team.
Right, it's going to be
Yeah.
focused on your COs at Lynnwood Police Jail that you are leading. That's the way we are as guys typically, and maybe women are as well, but I'm just saying that's the way I'm going to look at it. And instead of that, can you create a why statement that's just as applicable to you leading those men and women, and also it's applicable for you at home, and also it's applicable for you in your neighborhood, and also it's applicable for you if you run a side business. And that was what we were pushing these supervisors to do, because if you can do that, and then therefore if you can go back to the folks that you're leading and have them do the same thing, to where I feel purposeful just about no matter what. Like I can accomplish my purpose most of the time in a lot of different ways. You can't cause me to not do my purpose, not fulfill my purpose.
Right.
Now, I think there are times that someone else could interfere with that. And again, that's where we get back to I need to find a different place to work.
Right.
If this place is so in conflict with what my purpose is, well, yeah, you look for a different, either a different location, different organization, or maybe a new type of job. But when I did that and I created a purpose that resonates for me as a podcast host, as a leadership consultant, as a dad, as a husband, as a servant in my church, right? Like it helps me on the tough days
Yeah.
to be like, what's my purpose again? Oh, that's right. Why am I doing what I'm currently doing? You know what? I'm done doing what I'm currently doing with this thing because
Right.
this is not what I'm about. This is not who I am.
Well, it doesn't serve the purpose, right? If our if
Yeah.
our if our goal is to build a building and everything that we do is putting effort into building that building, when something comes that is not in alignment with that purpose, it does something internal, right? Like it's like, man, this is not congruent. I don't feel good about this. This is not what my purpose is. And I think that can really, I think that's what I feel working in the field in 2020, 2021, when all the craziness was happening. I'll tell you at one point we had zero people in our jail. We had zero people in our jail
Oh yeah,
because our
because of
cops weren't arresting
COVID.
people and there's COVID
Yes.
and all, right?
Yep. Yep.
So we'd come to work for 12 hours. We couldn't train because we couldn't be by each other. We could barely talk to each other. They wanted us like down the hallway and pretty easy to lose your purpose in that,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I think that really affected a lot of people. I know it did me, and I had to do something different. And there are a lot of people that stayed and said, "No, I'm going to stick this out," and good for them, man. I love that. I want that for them. But for me, I needed something different that was more in alignment with what my purpose was. And I think my purpose is investing in our corrections officers and increasing their capabilities. So
Oh, I love it. I love it. Um, you also have a podcast.
I do. It is kind of a passion project when I have the moments to do it. But really, I have an opportunity to meet some really cool people and call them friends and people that are doing great things in the industry. And I like kind of sharing that with other people. It's a lot of fun to do that. And it's like, hey, I know this stuff. I know this person, right?
Yeah.
So, I put it out when I can. But one of the cool things that we're doing with it is that we get an opportunity when we go train in different states or different agencies. Inevitably, just we were talking in our pre-interview, met somebody teaching a class. That's what we do too. We find somebody who is awesome and has passion or has a story or has something to offer others, and then we steal that person and then we make them talk on a mic for a while. So
Yeah.
we've done that a couple of times, and then just talking with our other trainers and stuff. We have a great team at Arc Tactical that has a lot of good information to share. So we get to push that out there. But unlike you, I am not consistent with it. I need to be more, but I find I don't want to just say something to say something. I want
Yeah.
it to have a purpose behind it. And sometimes that purpose doesn't need to be on Apple Podcasts. Sometimes that purpose needs to be invested in the agencies at their location. And that's where we put the most of our efforts. So
Well, and again, going back to your purpose or your why, I would argue you shouldn't be consistent with it
yeah,
because if you being consistent with producing a weekly or biweekly podcast distracts you from being able to impact CEOs at the agencies that you're serving, then it would be counter to your
yeah,
why, right? And so again, that's what I need, just because without that North Star, I throw in a bunch of I should be, I'm not doing this piece good enough, even some things like I'm failing. And so it has been very liberating and my why. So and Matt's kind of helped me with this a little bit. Before I just had a why, and now I kind of have this lead up that Simon does of I believe people are hungry for life change.
right.
Uh, I also believe that life change happens in the context of training, mentoring, and coaching. And my why is I will captivate audiences with truth to allow for life change. And
I
so
love that.
having that structure makes the nose a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
It frees me up to look at something and go, oh no, like, why would I do this? Like, this is
Yeah.
easy. No. And I've had some job opportunities over the last 2 years. I mean, again, me leaving law enforcement when I didn't have Gravity Consulting built up to where it was ready to provide for my family. And so I was in limbo there for a little bit, like considering selling the house
Mm,
and hoping that the wife would move with me
right.
after and she assured me she would, but just like there was some fear there, if I'm being real,
Yeah.
of I'm supposed to be this provider and now I'm not providing. And um, but as looked at some job opportunities, they were going to interfere with, like, one company. They wanted me to sign a contract, so I read the contract, and it said that I wouldn't do business with any organization that they do business with. And
Yeah.
so the guy that was kind of like my point of contact, I said, hey, I can't sign this. Like, I don't know who you guys do business with. And
Yeah.
I know you guys do some in Washington State. So, like, in good faith, I just can't. And I eventually connected with their CEO. We had a really good conversation. And we both were just very direct with each other. And
Love
he,
that.
he expressed to me how he's trying to protect his company and the people he's responsible for, all of his employees. And he goes,
Yeah.
Chris, I've had people come in and they were going to teach for us and they ended up stealing our content, kind of, and went and reproduced it themselves, and then they went and tried to undercut us with customers that we had.
Yeah.
Totally get it, dude. I totally get why you're trying to protect your people. Do you understand why I'm trying to protect me and my family? Is because if I sign this thing and you aren't giving me work and I need to go out and find my own work, right? And now
Yeah.
I can't do work. I can't interact with any of these businesses that you're doing business with. I have to check with you every time. Yeah. So, but again, it made the nose easier because I can go back to this why.
Yeah.
Is this gonna allow me to captivate audiences with truth? And if it is, then it might be a yes. And if it isn't, super easy no.
Well, Matt Porter, again, just great dude, super insightful.
I don't know. He's okay, I guess.
Well, I have to say it because yeah. No, awesome dude. But one of the things that I took from him was um, I had a bad habit of saying that I'm busy all the time, right? Hey, what's going on in your life? I'm just busy, right? When he corrected me with kindness and love
Yeah.
uh, over and over again, because it's a hard habit to break. But he said, stop saying you're busy, say you're prioritizing. And that's
Yes.
a fair, honest statement. And what it does is it still creates that line to that purpose, right? And
Yeah.
prioritize and what's the hierarchy? Well, the purpose is at the top of that hierarchy still. So
Yeah.
it's just, words matter. And that's something that I'm still working on. So
I love the fact that you just said words matter because that's my vocabulary. Matt will always push back with words are powerful icons. We need to stop talking about this Matt Porter guy in this episode. He is pretty remarkable, everyone. If you
yeah,
don't know who we're talking about, he owns a company called One IC, and he's just a good human being. So,
yeah.
um, well, what next? Like, as you continue to develop Arc Tactical, are you guys look? I mean, it sounds like you guys mainly focus on defensive tactics.
We do a lot of different things. We do a primary product, I guess you would say, is doing defensive tactics, but in context. So it's not like I'm going to teach you move A, B, and C. It's, hey, here's some principles. This is the problem, right? How do we use these principles to solve this problem? And a lot of times those problems are high risk transport or they're cell extractions or cert team operations or crowd control, that those types of operations that are on its scope. Look, hey, look, this is dangerous and there's a lot of moving parts and we can't mess it up. Like, how do we manage that? So we have these principles that are based in things that work, things that are tested and trusted, and just the application of them is where we kind of have our expertise. But we also venture out into a bunch of other areas too, right? One of the things that I found early on is, hey, look, I know how to do these things now. I'm empowered to do all these techniques. I can handle myself. I'm good. I don't know when I can do them, right? I don't know when it's legal to do it. I don't know
Yeah.
what's too much, what's not enough. And a lot of our COs, like I'll tell you, we went to um, a, a state on the east side of the country, and I asked them, what do you guys know about use of force and corrections? What does that look like? And the guy's answer was, I can do one thing worse to them than they can do to me.
That's
And
not
that
a good guideline.
that's not in the law anywhere, as it turns out. But but that really highlighted this, man, we gotta help our guys out here, because they're going into these situations thinking that they know what they can do. They're not trying to break or hurt anybody. They're really giving it their best, but they don't know conceptually what that looks like. And so we have an amazing use of force class that is not just um, lecture based, it is practical based. So we put our officers into a scenario, then we make them write about it, then we make them tell them why they did the thing that they did. And so
Oh, I like it.
it's a lot of fun. We love running that. We infuse use of force law into everything that we do, because we don't work in silos. We have to keep that stuff in mind, right? And then finally, most of our classes are instructor based, and teaching motor skills is a little bit different than teaching cognitive skills.
Yeah.
Getting somebody to do the thing that you want them to do physically, and to a level of automaticity where when I need it, I just do it. I don't need to, like, okay, what are the 7 steps that I need to, oh, I'm punched in the face, right? So we try to avoid that. But we have a lot of instructor development infused in our programs as well. So what's next? I think we're just expanding. My goal is to be in every state, at least once a year. People are hungry for it. Whenever you go to our classes, we have a saying internally, and that everything's a commercial, because when we go to our classes and we teach and we do our thing, people are like, we want more of that, right? So that's how we've expanded, and we're going to do that more. And then on kind of a newer area, we've done it a couple of times, but I really want to lay into it, is, one of the things that we found as a barrier to our COs getting training is money, of course,
Yeah.
but logistics is more, because the biggest issue in our jails right now is staffing,
Yeah.
right? We lost a ton of people during COVID. It's not a flashy job. People aren't jumping at the bit to go and do it. But when they're there, our guys got to keep them there, right? Our leadership has to keep them there. So how do you invest in our people, get them training so that they feel like they're valued and they're capable of doing the work, but also keep them on the line? Because we pull them every other week. That's a problem, right?
Yeah.
So we have a pretty robust online program that is not like a click button thing. It's basically what you and I are doing now. I'll share a PowerPoint. We work through some stuff. I throw people into some exercises as we go through, and it allows them to do it at their desk. It allows them to get that information, feel like they're being invested in getting the knowledge without breaking the bank or affecting staffing. And so that's where we're going to lean in more as we move forward, some of those programs. Now, you can't do a ton of physical skills online, so those are always going to be around. But some of the other stuff like instructor development or use of force law, or I mean, heck, we have stuff like body scanner, image evaluation. We have, all kinds of stuff out there. So
I love it. Well, you could do it online. You would just tell them they have to bring their own dummy with them. And so
that's
when
right.
my dad was going through the police academy, I was not 8 or 9, and I remember he'd come home on the weekends and practice his hair holds on me back when I actually had hair. And I thought it was great. Like, he wasn't abusing me. Like, I was
No,
all into this whole policing thing my dad was getting into, right? And so and I know that sounds kind of weird, that I'm enjoying my dad putting me in a hair hold, but he wasn't being a jerk about it, right? He was showing
right.
me what he had learned that week, and I was all mesmerized by the fact that my dad's some superhero now. And so that's all they would need, just bring, and
Yeah.
you're gonna have to have that person sign a waiver, otherwise we're gonna be witnessing a whole bunch of domestic violence stuff, which would be
Right.
bad. But all right, grab your person by the hair. At some point, one of the people would be like, all right, it's time to switch. It's time to
Yeah,
switch role players.
exactly. Well, one of the things that we found, I mean, I'm not going to say that it's archaic, because it still holds value, right? But the different learning styles, right? We talk about audio, visual, and kinesthetic, and we can replicate that virtually. We can describe what something's about. we can show a video of what that thing's supposed to look like. It's the kinesthetic piece that tactical sensitivity, that proprioception that gets lost in translation. So
Yeah.
we're trying to figure that piece out. But there's possibilities there.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, because I mean, you're right. When it comes to the kinesthetic learners, typically them doing the tasks themselves is going to have the highest value. But
Yeah.
is there something else that you can do? And I'm asking this for myself as well. Is there something else that you can do to help the kinesthetic learner move, right? Because it's not just doing the task, it's also having some type of body movement,
Yeah.
something going on that's going to help the kinesthetic learner stay dialed in. I remember I took a 6 week instructor development class when I was in the Air Force. And I remember they handed out koosh balls at the beginning of the 6 week training. And
Interesting.
and they encouraged us to be screwing around with fidget spinners and koosh balls. And what they were telling us was, for those of you that are kinesthetic learners, that this activity that you're doing while you're learning, it may look like a distraction to some people, but in reality, it's helping you process, it's helping your brain process the information that we're doing, and it's going to increase the level of retention you're going to have when you then get up and apply it. So always the in-person hands-on stuff is scenario-based training is going to take us, I think, to that highest level.
Yeah.
And it's not always possible. And so I love what you guys are doing in recognizing that and coming up with solutions that are still going to bring valuable training to people, to COs in this case, or anyone else within the criminal justice world. And it's going to be a whole lot cheaper. So
That's our goal, right? We want to take away any barriers because at the end of the day, either you train somebody or you don't. And if you don't, then you're just inviting a ton of lawsuits, creating injury, injuring people in your custody. And then what happens after the big lawsuit? Well, then we say, hey, we got to train these guys up when we could actually do it before all of that. And so that's our kind of mission now is how do we reduce the barriers to getting our people training without sacrificing the content? Because I'm not about checkbox training. We don't do things just to do it. We do it because we're looking for performance. And when we can verify performance, our job is done. And so that's what you'll get from ARC Tacticals. We're never going to sacrifice that component, but we are working really hard always to figure out new methods to make that possible for everybody.
I love it. Hey, brother, I want to honor your time. What are if this is the first time someone has heard your voice, and one, they want to connect with you, or two, they want to learn more about Art Tactical, what are the best ways for people to reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, thanks, man. We have a big online presence. Our website is arctac.net. That's arctac.net. And my email is tim@arctac.net. I'm a huge email guy. When I wake up in the morning, I have 50 emails that I work through, and that's the best way to get a hold of me. But we're also on social media, LinkedIn. Tim Fasnacht's on there. We have a ArcTac LinkedIn page that we put a lot of our content out there. But really, those are the best ways. And we are coming out with new stuff all the time around the country. I know you got a pretty wide listener group. And so if you're interested in taking one of our classes, if you're a CO or even a cop that wants to learn more about this side of law enforcement, take a look at our website, see what we got upcoming. I think our next stuff is in Colorado. We have a DT instructor class in Colorado. And then in Michigan, we have a cell extraction instructor class, and then some stuff locally here in Washington. But we always got stuff going on, and we just love communicating with our COs out there that are really doing the hard work. I'm blessed. I'm not boots on the ground anymore. But if there's something I can do to support the folks that are, I'm happy to do it.
I love it. Well, for the listeners, I'm going to make that really easy. All of those links are going to be down in the show notes. Maybe not Tim's email address. What I've learned is there is just with AI technology, they will scan my show notes and
Really?
they will hammer people. I've had one guy who gave his phone number and that's what he wanted. He wanted it in there, so I put it in there, and then he reached out to me like a few days after it aired and said, "Hey, can you take my phone number down?" his his spam phone calls went through the roof. So for the email folks, it was super easy. Tim@arctac.net. You can remember that. But for the rest of those links, they will be down in the show notes. One click and you'll be able to connect with Tim or with ARC Tactical. Tim, time is my greatest commodity. I can't make more of this stuff. And brother, you have given me a lot of yours. I appreciate you.
Back at you, man. It's good to connect again after all these years, and I really appreciate what you're doing. You're really building a platform that's invested in people that on topics that matter. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, brother. Thank you. Have a great day. Wow, folks, what did you think about my interview with Tim? Constantly amazed and just I feel a lot of gratitude of this opportunity to sit with other people and to listen to their life story, their perspectives, and the journey that's gotten them to where they're at. Hey folks, Jaimie and I want to hear about this journey that you're on in listening to this podcast. How are we doing? We'd really appreciate you communicating back to us so that we can get better. And there's a few different ways for you to do that. First and foremost, please follow us on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. That will cause the next episode to come up in your dashboard. You can also rate and review us. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, there's 5 stars waiting on your main page, or not your main page, but our main page. We'd really appreciate a 5-star rating if we've earned 5 stars, folks. If we haven't earned 5 stars, keep your stars. Instead, shoot me an email at chris@gravityct.com. Let us know how to make it better, maybe future Mighty Monday motivating ideas or guests for me to interview. Folks, we only get to live this life once. Let's go out and take care of the people in our tribes. Take care of each other. God bless.